Lila never considered herself the kind of girl who would fall for someone far out of her world. She was a quiet, hard-working student at the University of Lagos, more concerned with lectures and part-time jobs than with romance. Her parents had raised her with simple values: work hard, stay humble, and never depend on anyone to define her worth. But all that certainty cracked the moment Marcus Adebayo stepped into her life. Marcus wasn't just any student. He was the golden son of the Adebayos, one of the wealthiest families in the city, a family name that commanded respect wherever it was mentioned. His father owned a multinational oil company. His mother ran luxury fashion boutiques across Nigeria, and his siblings were already being groomed for political and business leadership. Marcus was their pride and joy, the heir everyone admired and envied. But to Lila, he wasn't just the Adebayo heir. He was the tall, broad-shouldered young man with a charming smile who held doors open for her in the library, who offered her bottled water when he noticed her studying late into the night. He was the one who made her laugh even when life felt too heavy. She never imagined he would even notice her, the daughter of a retired civil servant and a schoolteacher, struggling to afford tuition. It began simply: study sessions at the library, conversations that stretched late into the night about everything from politics to music. Marcus found her refreshing. Unlike the wealthy girls who always trailed him, obsessed with his last name and the glamour attached to it, Lila challenged him. She questioned his opinions. She teased him about his arrogance. She treated him like a man, not a trophy. And that was exactly why he couldn't stay away. "I like the way you talk to me," Marcus told her one night as they sat outside the faculty building under the dim glow of the streetlights. His voice was soft, almost vulnerable. "And how do I talk to you?" Lila asked, raising a brow. "Like I'm human, not like I'm some prize to be won." He sighed and leaned back, staring at the stars. "Do you know how rare that is for me?" Lila smiled faintly, hugging her bag close to her chest. "Maybe that's because you're too busy surrounding yourself with people who only care about your name." He chuckled, shaking his head. "Then maybe I should spend more time with you." That was the beginning. Before long, their study sessions turned into long walks turned into secret dates, and secret dates became stolen kisses. Marcus showered her with attention, the kind she had only read about in novels. He would drive her home in his sleek black car, whispering jokes that left her blushing. He would sneak into her tiny off-campus apartment with takeout food, laughing about how he preferred her cooking to the fancy meals his family chef prepared. But their relationship wasn't something he wanted the world to know about, not yet. "My parents wouldn't understand," Marcus told her one evening as they lay on her bed, their fingers entwined. "They expect me to marry someone from our circle, someone who will strengthen the family name. And I don't fit into that picture," Lila said quietly, staring at the ceiling. "Don't say that." He turned to her, brushing his thumb across her cheek. "You're more than enough for me. You're everything." "Then why hide me?" she asked, her voice breaking ever so slightly. His silence stretched before he finally sighed. "Because timing matters, Lila. Let me handle them. I'll tell them when the time is right." And because she loved him, truly loved him, she believed him. For months, they built their own little world in the shadows. Marcus would slip away from family dinners to meet her. He would cancel events just to spend quiet evenings in her tiny apartment, curled up watching movies or sharing bowls of jollof rice she had cooked. Lila cherished those moments, but deep down, fear gnawed at her heart. Would he ever really tell them? Or would she always be his hidden secret? The answer came unexpectedly. It was a Saturday morning when Lila woke up feeling strange. Her body was heavy, her stomach unsettled. At first, she thought it was stress from exams. But when the nausea persisted, her roommate teased her, saying, "Lila, maybe you're pregnant." The word stuck. 2 pregnancy tests later, her hand shook as she stared at the double lines. She was carrying Marcus's child. Her mind raced. What would she do? What would he say? Fear and joy collided in her chest. A baby was life, a blessing, but it was also a responsibility she had never imagined she'd shoulder this soon. She sat on her bed, clutching the test, whispering through tears, "God, what am I going to do?" That evening, she gathered the courage to tell Marcus. He was sitting casually on her couch, scrolling through his phone, when she whispered, "Marcus, I need to talk to you." The seriousness in her tone made him put his phone down immediately. "What's wrong?" "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air like thunder. His eyes widened, his jaw tightening. He ran his hand across his face, pacing the small room. "Pregnant?" he repeated, almost like the word itself was poison. "Yes," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "I took 2 tests. Both positive. Marcus, we're going to have a baby." He stopped pacing and looked at her, his face unreadable. "Are you sure?" "Of course I'm sure," she said, a flash of frustration in her voice. "Do you think I'd lie about something like this?" He sighed heavily, sinking into the chair opposite her. "Lila, this is complicated." Her heart broke at his reaction. She had imagined shock, maybe even fear, but not this cold distance. "Complicated? Marcus, this is our baby." "You don't understand," he muttered. "My parents, if they find out, it'll be chaos. They'll never accept this. They'll see it as a scandal. I'm supposed to be engaged to someone else, eventually. Someone from our world." Lila felt the air leave her lungs. "So what am I? A secret you sleep with? A phase before you move on to someone your parents approve of?" "No," he snapped, standing to his feet. "Don't twist my words. I care about you, Lila. But this changes everything. We need time. I need to figure out how to handle this without destroying everything." Tears streamed down her face as she stood too, her voice trembling. "There's nothing to figure out. I'm carrying your child, Marcus. You either stand by me, or you don't." He didn't answer. That silence cut deeper than any insult ever could. Over the following days, Lila lived in a storm of emotions. Marcus kept his distance, claiming he was handling things. But she felt the walls closing in. Her friends noticed her pale face, her distracted state. Her parents, though far away, sensed something was wrong. Yet Lila told no one. She carried the weight alone, clinging to Marcus's half-promises that he would come around. But the truth was clearer with each passing day. He was terrified, not of fatherhood, but of his family's disapproval. The day that should have been her happiest, the day she found out about the life growing inside her, was tainted by the crushing reality that the man she loved might never fully claim her. Still, despite her pain, she loved him, and so she waited, believing that one day he would choose her openly, proudly, without shame. But deep inside, a quiet voice warned her, love that hides in the shadows rarely survives in the light. And as she lay in bed that night, her hand resting gently on her stomach, she whispered to the tiny life inside her, "No matter what happens, I will love you, even if I have to do it alone." The news of her pregnancy changed everything for Lila, yet somehow the world around her carried on as though nothing had shifted. Students still hurried to classes, lecturers droned on, and the hum of Lagos life remained as loud as ever. But inside her, life was growing, and the weight of that secret pressed on her chest every waking moment. Marcus had withdrawn even further since the revelation. He still sent the occasional message, short, vague texts like, "I'm thinking of you," or "Give me time." But his presence, the warm comfort she had once relied on, was gone. Nights that had once been filled with whispered conversations and laughter were now filled with silence. She often sat in her tiny room, staring at her phone, waiting for a message that rarely came. Her roommate, Ada, noticed the change almost immediately. "Lila, you're not yourself these days. You hardly eat. You hardly smile. What's going on?" Ada asked one evening as they sat on the thin mattress, books scattered around from their half-hearted attempt at studying. Lila forced a smile, shaking her head. "I'm just tired. You know, with exams and everything." Ada gave her a long look, her brow furrowed. "Tired? Lila, you've always been strong, but I can see something is weighing you down. Don't shut me out." Lila's lips trembled. She wanted to tell Ada the truth, to cry into her friend's arms and confess the secret she carried. But fear silenced her. Fear of judgment, fear of pity, fear of becoming gossip in a community that thrived on whispers. So she swallowed her pain and simply said, "I'll be fine." But she wasn't fine. The first trimester was brutal. Morning sickness plagued her relentlessly. She vomited before lectures, excused herself during tutorials, and often walked out of class pale and dizzy. She covered it up as food poisoning or stress. But the truth was harder to hide as her body slowly began to change. And yet, through it all, she still held onto the hope that Marcus would finally step forward, that he would stand beside her when she needed him most. She clung to his promises, even as they began to sound emptier with each passing week. One afternoon, after weeks of unanswered calls, she finally cornered him outside the economics faculty. He looked startled to see her, glancing around nervously as though afraid of who might be watching. "Marcus, we need to talk," she said firmly. He shifted uncomfortably, lowering his voice. "Not here. People are watching." Her heart sank. "People? Marcus, I'm carrying your child, and you're worried about people watching." He sighed, running a hand through his neatly trimmed hair. "Lila, please. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. If my parents find out before I can prepare them, it'll destroy everything." "Everything?" Her voice cracked. "What about me? What about our baby? Do we mean so little to you?" He reached out, trying to touch her hand, but she pulled back. "Lila, I swear I'll fix this. Just give me time." "How much time?" she demanded, her eyes glistening. 9 months. A year. When exactly will I stop being your secret?" Marcus's silence was deafening. Tears stung her eyes as she whispered, "I'm already doing this alone. Don't make me regret ever trusting you." Then she turned and walked away, leaving him standing there with guilt etched across his face. From that day, she stopped expecting anything from him. She still loved him. Love doesn't vanish overnight, but she began to build her own walls. She focused on her studies as best as she could, took on extra shifts at the small eatery where she worked, and quietly began saving money. Every coin she dropped into her savings box was a reminder. She was preparing for a future where she and her child might have only each other. But the whispers began. By the 4th month, her belly had started to show, however slightly. Students noticed. They whispered in corridors, cast curious glances during lectures. Ada confronted her again, her tone sharper this time. "Lila, I'm not stupid. You're pregnant, aren't you?" The question hung heavy between them. Lila froze, her lips trembling. Finally, she nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Yes, I am," Ada gasped, covering her mouth. "Oh my God. Who? When? How?" She stopped herself, realizing the flood of questions was cruel. She reached out instead, hugging Lila tightly. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I was scared." Lila sobbed into her friend's shoulder. "I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want to be judged." Ada pulled back, her eyes fierce. "Listen to me. You're not alone. I don't care what anyone says. You're going to be fine. We'll get through this together." Lila clung to those words. For the first time in months, she felt a spark of comfort. But not everyone was kind. Whispers turned into outright gossip. Some girls sneered when she walked past, muttering insults about reckless girls who can't control themselves. Others speculated cruelly about who the father might be. None suspected Marcus, not because they couldn't imagine it, but because they couldn't fathom someone like him ever being with someone like her. The judgment was suffocating. Professors looked at her with disappointment, fellow students with scorn. Even in church, where she sought comfort, she felt the sting of sideways glances and whispered prayers laced with condemnation. One Sunday after service, an older woman from the congregation pulled her aside. "Lila, my dear, you must think about your future. No decent man will want a girl who comes to marriage already carrying another man's child. You've thrown your life away." Lila smiled faintly, though her heart shattered inside. "Thank you for your concern, Ma," she said softly, then walked away, tears burning her eyes. Through it all, Marcus remained silent. He didn't call, didn't visit. Lila sometimes wondered if he had erased her from his life completely. But then, one evening, as she walked home from the market carrying bags of food, a sleek black car pulled up beside her. The tinted window rolled down, and Marcus's mother's face appeared. "Get in," the woman said coolly. Lila froze. The resemblance to Marcus was undeniable, the same sharp jawline, the same commanding presence. But where Marcus's eyes once held warmth, his mother's were cold as steel. Lila hesitated. "Ma, get in." The tone left no room for argument. Reluctantly, Lila climbed into the back seat. The leather smelled of wealth, of power. The woman studied her silently, for a long moment, her gaze sharp enough to cut. "So it's true," she finally said. "You're carrying my son's child." Lila swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, Ma." The woman's lips curved into a humorless smile. "You must think yourself clever. A girl from nowhere, trapping a boy like Marcus with a pregnancy. Do you think this will earn you a place in our family?" Lila's eyes stung, but she forced herself to speak. "I didn't trap him. We loved each other." The woman laughed bitterly. "Love? My dear, love doesn't pay bills. Love doesn't maintain empires. You will never be one of us." She leaned closer, her voice sharp. "If you know what is good for you, you will raise that child quietly and never expect anything from Marcus. He belongs to a different world, a world you can never enter." Tears filled Lila's eyes, but she held her ground. "With or without Marcus, I will raise this child. I don't need your approval." The woman's expression hardened. "Good, because you will never have it." The car stopped abruptly at the corner of her street. Without another word, the woman gestured for her to get out. Lila stepped onto the dusty road, clutching her bags as the car sped away. Her legs trembled as she walked home, but inside, something shifted. She realized then that she was truly on her own, not just without Marcus, but against his entire powerful family. That night, as she lay in bed, her hands gently resting on her growing belly, she whispered to her child, "They can deny us. They can look down on us. But I will never abandon you. You're mine, and I will fight for you." The secret was no longer just a burden. It was a vow, a silent promise that no matter what the world said, she would endure. The months passed in a blur of pain, exhaustion, and silent strength. By the time Lila reached her 9th month, her once slender frame had blossomed into the full glow of motherhood. The whispers never stopped, the judgment never softened, and Marcus never came back. She had learned to walk the campus with her head high, even when students whispered behind her back. She had learned to endure the long walks to the clinic alone, to budget every naira from her part-time job, and to prepare for a future that looked nothing like the life she had once imagined. Yet in her heart, hope clung stubbornly. She told herself that Marcus would come, that when the baby arrived, he would finally see, finally understand, finally stand by her side. She replayed memories of his laughter, his promises, the way his hand once cupped her cheek as he swore she was everything. Those memories, fragile and fading, were the only things that kept her from breaking completely. The day came suddenly. It was late in the evening when the first wave of pain hit her like a lightning bolt. She doubled over in her small apartment, clutching her stomach. Ada rushed to her side, panic in her eyes. "It's time," she whispered urgently. Within minutes, neighbors rallied around, hailing a taxi that sped them through the busy Lagos streets toward the hospital. Lila's cries echoed in the cramped back seat as Ada held her hand, whispering prayers, whispering strength. At the hospital, the hours stretched long and torturous. Sweat drenched her face. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she refused to give up. Nurses urged her on. Doctors shouted encouragement, and Ada never left her side. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the cries of a newborn filled the sterile air. A boy. Perfect, tiny, beautiful. Lila's heart nearly stopped as they placed him in her arms. His skin was soft, his cries fierce, his presence overwhelming. She stared down at him, trembling. "My baby," she whispered, her tears wetting his forehead. "You're here. You're mine." For a moment, the world melted away. The pain, the shame, the whispers, all of it vanished. There was only her and her son. He was everything she never knew she needed. She counted his fingers, kissed his cheeks, inhaled his newborn scent, and felt love surge so powerfully through her that she could barely breathe. Ada, exhausted but smiling, wiped her own tears. "He's beautiful, Lila. Absolutely beautiful. 2 days later, as she sat in the hospital bed with her son cradled against her chest, she finally gathered the courage to call Marcus. Her hand shook as she dialed his number. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. On the fourth ring, he answered. "Hello." His voice was calm, almost casual. Her throat tightened. "Marcus, he's here. Our son. He was born 2 days ago." Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Lila's heart pounded. "Marcus? Did you hear me? We have a son. He's perfect. You need to see him." When he finally spoke, his voice was cold, distant. "Lila, I told you before. I never wanted this." Her blood ran cold. "What do you mean? This is your child." "I didn't ask for a family with you," he said sharply. "I told you from the beginning that this would ruin everything. My parents, my life, my future. They will never accept this. I can't claim him. I won't." Her body trembled as she tightened her hold on the baby. Tears blurred her vision. "Marcus, how can you say that? How can you deny him? He's your blood. He's ours." But Marcus only sighed. "Lila, you need to understand. I have responsibilities. My father is already arranging my engagement to someone else. This child, he doesn't fit into that picture." The words cut deeper than any knife. She felt her chest constrict, her breath shallow. "You're abandoning us," she whispered. "I'm moving on," he said flatly. "I suggest you do the same. Raise him however you want, but don't ever expect me to be part of it." Her heart shattered. She wanted to scream, to beg, to curse him, but the baby stirred in her arms, letting out a soft cry. She kissed his head, whispering through her tears, "I will never let you feel unwanted. Not ever." When she hung up, her body shook with sobs. Ada rushed to her side, clutching her shoulders. "What did he say?" "He denied us," Lila choked out. "He said he doesn't want us." Ada's face twisted with fury. "That coward. That selfish coward. How dare he? You gave him everything, and this is how he repays you." Lila wept harder, her voice breaking. "What am I going to do, Ada? How am I supposed to raise him alone?" Ada held her tightly. "You'll do it the same way you've survived everything else. With strength. With love. That boy doesn't need Marcus. He has you." The days after leaving the hospital were some of the hardest in Lila's life. She returned to her small apartment, now with a tiny crib squeezed beside her bed. Nights were sleepless, filled with the baby's cries, diaper changes, and exhaustion so heavy she thought she might collapse. Yet through the weariness, her heart swelled with love every time she looked at him. She named him Emmanuel, God with us, because even in her darkest moment, she felt the divine presence reminding her she was not truly alone. But outside her small world, judgment never ceased. Neighbors whispered about the girl who had a child out of wedlock. Women at the market stared when she haggled with a baby strapped to her back. Even some relatives called her parents, shaming them for raising a daughter who had thrown away her future. Her parents, though shocked and disappointed at first, eventually rallied around her. Her mother, a gentle woman with tired eyes, came to visit one weekend, cradling Emmanuel in her arms with tears streaming down her face. "He's innocent, Lila," she said softly. "No matter what people say, he's a blessing. We will not abandon you." Her father, stricter, took longer to soften. He sat silently for hours, watching the baby sleep, before finally saying, "You must be strong, stronger than ever. This child will depend on you. Don't let him suffer because of one man's weakness." Those words stung, but they also lit a fire in her heart. She knew then that she had no choice but to rise, to fight, to create a life for her son that was not defined by shame or abandonment. Meanwhile, Marcus's life carried on as if nothing had happened. Weeks later, Lila saw his face splashed across social media. Photos of him at a high-profile party, smiling beside a stunning woman in designer clothes. The caption read, "Future power couple, Marcus Adebayo and his fiancée-to-be." Her stomach turned. He had moved on. He had replaced her and their child with a woman his family approved of. Her hand shook as she scrolled through the pictures, Emmanuel asleep beside her. She whispered bitterly, "One day, You'll regret this. One day, you'll see what you threw away. That night, as she rocked Emmanuel to sleep, she realized something profound. She had been waiting for Marcus to rescue her, to validate her, to claim her and their child. But he never would. The only person she could depend on was herself, and that meant she had to stop mourning what she lost and start building what she still had. She pressed a kiss to her son's tiny forehead, whispering, "It's you and me now, Emmanuel. Just you and me. And I promise, I will give you a life full of love, no matter what it costs me." It was the moment of truth, not just about Marcus, but about herself. The man she loved had abandoned her, but the woman she was becoming would endure. Life with Emmanuel became Lila's entire existence. Every cry in the middle of the night, every small hand that grasped her finger, every innocent smile reminded her that she had something worth fighting for. But being a single mother at 22 was brutal. The nights were long and sleepless, the days filled with endless tasks. She worked part-time at the eatery during the day, studied when she could, and rocked her baby to sleep at night. Her body ached constantly, her eyes carried heavy bags, and yet she never let herself break in front of Emmanuel. To him, she was warmth and love, even if the rest of the world saw only scandal and shame. Bills piled up faster than she could pay them. Milk, diapers, medical checkups, it was overwhelming. Sometimes she sat late at night staring at her nearly empty wallet, fighting the urge to break down completely. Ada, her roommate, helped as much as she could, buying small things for the baby, covering chores when Lila was too exhausted to move. But Lila refused to lean too heavily on anyone. "He's my responsibility," she often whispered to herself. "I chose him. I will raise him." Still, there were nights when she wept silently, her tears soaking Emmanuel's blanket as she whispered, "I hope I'm enough for you. I hope my love makes up for everything he'll never give you." Meanwhile, Marcus's world looked like the complete opposite. Photos of him began appearing online more frequently, dressed sharply, attending exclusive events with his new fiancée, Gloria Adeyemi. Gloria was everything his family wanted, a wealthy politician's daughter, elegant, polished, beautiful in the eyes of society. Together, they were portrayed as the perfect couple, Nigeria's rising power pair. Lila watched from the sidelines, her chest tightening every time she saw his smile captured in the flash of cameras. He had moved on so easily, erasing her and Emmanuel like they had never existed. One evening, Ada burst into their apartment holding her phone. "Lila, you need to see this." She handed her the device, her face tight with anger. On the screen was a photo of Marcus and Gloria at a luxury hotel, Marcus's arm around her waist, a diamond ring glittering on her finger. The headline read, "Official, Marcus Adebayo engaged to Gloria Lawson." Lila's knees buckled. She sank onto the chair, Emmanuel cradled in her arms. She stared at the photo until her vision blurred. He hadn't just abandoned them. He had replaced them. She thought back to the nights he had held her close, whispering promises. "You're everything to me." The lies cut sharper now than ever. Ada's voice shook with rage. How can he do this? How can he walk around flaunting a new fiancé when his own son is here? What kind of man does that? Lila didn't answer. She just held Emmanuel tighter, pressing his tiny body against her chest as though shielding him from the cruelty of the world. Her tears wet his hair. Later that week, the humiliation grew unbearable. Lila had gone to the market, Emmanuel strapped to her back, when she overheard two women whispering loudly as she walked by. "Isn't that the girl who had Marcus Adebayo's baby? Shameless, isn't it? He's already engaged to someone better." She thought she could trap him, but look at her now, carrying shame like a badge. Lila's steps faltered. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, to tell them she had never tried to trap anyone. But instead, she kept walking, her heart breaking with every word. She reached home, locked the door, and collapsed to the floor. Ada found her hours later, rocking Emmanuel and whispering through sobs, "I'm not ashamed of him. I'm not ashamed of my son. But why do they make me feel like I should be?" Her world felt like it was caving in, but she kept moving. She studied harder, determined to graduate despite the odds. She worked longer hours, pushing her body to the brink of collapse. She refused to let Marcus's absence define Emmanuel's life. But one day, she saw him again. It was at a friend's wedding. Lila had almost skipped the event, not wanting to face the judgmental stares, but Ada insisted she deserved a night to breathe. So she went, wearing a simple gown she had saved up for, her hair tied in neat braids. Emmanuel left safely at home, with her mother. For a while, she even felt human again, laughing quietly with Ada as the ceremony unfolded. Then she saw him. Marcus walked in, Gloria on his arm, both of them glowing in designer clothes. The room buzzed with admiration. People whispered about how perfect they looked together. Lila's heart pounded as she froze in place, her body trembling. She tried to avoid his eyes, but at one point, their gazes locked across the room. For a second, time froze. His smile faltered, his expression unreadable. Lila quickly looked away, blinking back tears. Later, as she sat at her table quietly sipping water, she overheard laughter nearby. Marcus's friends were joking loudly, one of them saying, "Remember that girl from campus? The one Marcus got pregnant? I saw her outside the market the other day. Can you believe how far she's fallen?" Meanwhile, look at him, engaged to Gloria. What a level up. Her cheeks burned. The humiliation was unbearable. She wanted the ground to swallow her whole. Ada clenched her fists, whispering furiously, "Don't cry. Don't give them the satisfaction." But Lila couldn't stop the tears that slipped down her cheeks. When she finally excused herself and slipped outside into the cool night air, she leaned against a wall, gasping for breath as though the pain was suffocating her. Her mind screamed with questions. Why wasn't I enough? Why wasn't our son enough? A few minutes later, footsteps approached. She turned, and there was Marcus. He looked different up close, older, more serious. His eyes scanned her face, softening for a moment before hardening again. "Lila," he said quietly. Her lips trembled. "Why are you here? Haven't you taken enough from me already?" He shifted uncomfortably, glancing around. "I just wanted to see you, to see how you're doing." She laughed bitterly. "How I'm doing? You denied me. You denied our son. And now you come here with your perfect fiancée, parading her around while people laugh at me. And you ask how I'm doing." Marcus's jaw tightened. "It wasn't that simple." "It was exactly that simple," she snapped. "You chose them over us. You abandoned me when I needed you most. And you left your son fatherless before he even had a chance to know you." His eyes flickered with guilt, but he said nothing. Lila shook her head, tears streaming. "Don't come near me again, Marcus. You've done enough damage." She walked away, her heart shattered all over again, but this time there was steel in her step. She realized she couldn't keep breaking every time his shadow crossed her path. She had to rise above it. She had to live not for him, not for his approval, but for herself and Emmanuel. That night, as she held her sleeping son, she whispered, "I promise you, I'll never let his rejection define us. We will rise, my child. We will rise." It was a vow born out of heartbreak, but it was the vow that would transform her future. The days after that wedding marked a silent shift inside Lila. She had spent too long allowing Marcus's absence, his denial, and the cruelty of others to define her worth. She realized that every tear she shed for him was a tear wasted, a tear stolen from the joy she could be giving her son. Emmanuel deserved a mother who stood tall, not one broken by a man who had proven time and again that he did not deserve her love. That night, as Emmanuel stirred beside her, she whispered to him, "It's time, my son. Time to rise. Time to prove that we don't need anyone else to shine." The next morning, she woke up with a determination she hadn't felt in months. She began to reorganize her life. First, she tightened her budget. No more small indulgences, no unnecessary spending. Every naira mattered, and she began to save with fierce discipline. Second, she doubled down on her studies. If she was going to survive, she needed more than strength. She needed a future that offered stability. She spent sleepless nights balancing Emmanuel's feedings with textbooks spread across her bed, her eyes burning from exhaustion but her mind pushing through. Ada watched with admiration. "Lila, I don't know how you do it. You take care of Emmanuel. You work shifts. You study like your life depends on it. and somehow you're still standing. Lila smiled faintly, adjusting Emmanuel's blanket. I don't have a choice. Falling apart is a luxury I can't afford. At the eatery where she worked, customers began to notice her diligence. She was always polite, always hard-working, never complaining even when she carried Emmanuel on her back during shifts. One evening, a woman approached her after finishing her meal. She was elegant, dressed in Ankara with gold jewelry that glinted under the lights. My dear, you work hard, the woman said warmly. Have you ever thought of starting something of your own? Lila chuckled softly, embarrassed. I've thought about it, Ma, but business takes money, and I don't have that kind of capital. The woman studied her closely. Ideas are worth more than money. What can you do? What are you passionate about? Lila hesitated. Cooking had always been her hidden gift. She had grown up helping her mother in the kitchen, mastering recipes with patience and love. She smiled shyly. I can cook. People say my food always has something extra, something that makes them come back for more. The woman nodded thoughtfully. Then start there. Sell food. Start small. You don't need a restaurant to begin. You need pots, fire, and faith. If you're good, customers will find you. That conversation lit a spark in Lila's heart. That night, she prayed about it, whispering into the silence of her room, God, if this is the way, open the doors for me. The next week, she borrowed a small amount from Ada and bought ingredients to prepare jollof rice, fried plantain, and grilled chicken. She cooked with passion, pouring her heart into every pot, and set up a small stand near the bus stop. At first, business was slow. Passers-by looked at her curiously, some whispering about the single mother who thought she could run a business. But soon, the aroma of her food began to attract people. One customer told another, and then another. Within weeks, her stand became a popular stop for workers and students alike. Lila worked tirelessly. She would wake before dawn, strap Emmanuel to her back, and prepare meals. She sold food all day, went to evening lectures, and studied deep into the night. It was grueling, but every time she counted her earnings, every time she saw Emmanuel smile, she knew it was worth it. Months passed, and her reputation grew. Customers began to call her Madame Jollof, praising her food as some of the best they had ever tasted. She saved every naira she could, reinvesting into her small business. With Ada's support and her parents occasionally sending help, she expanded her menu and even hired a teenage neighbor to assist her during busy hours. Her transformation did not go unnoticed. The same people who once mocked her began to admire her. A professor who had once frowned at her for being reckless now praised her perseverance in class. Neighbors who used to whisper behind her back now came to buy her food, complimenting her dishes. Slowly, respect replaced ridicule. One evening, as she was packing up her stand, a customer approached with a smile. He was a journalist from a local newspaper who had been buying her food for weeks. Lila, your story is inspiring, he said. Would you mind if I wrote an article about you? A young mother, abandoned but building a business from scratch. It's something people need to hear. Lila hesitated, her instinct to hide still strong. But then she thought of Emmanuel. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about showing him what resilience looked like. She nodded. Yes, you can write about me. Weeks later, the article was published. From struggle to strength. Young mother builds thriving business after abandonment. The story went viral locally. People admired her courage, her determination, her refusal to be crushed by circumstances. Customers doubled, then tripled. Orders began pouring in, and soon she was catering for small parties and events. Lila could hardly believe it. The same girl who had once cried herself to sleep, clutching her baby in fear of the future, was now being celebrated for her strength. Her heart swelled with gratitude every time she looked at Emmanuel. We're doing it, my son, she whispered one night as she held him close. We're rising. Step by step, we're rising. But fate has a way of circling back. One evening, as Lila was watching TV with Ada, a news feature flashed on the screen. It was about successful young entrepreneurs making waves in Lagos. And there she was, her stand, her smile, her story. The segment praised her as a symbol of resilience and empowerment. Far away, in the Adebayo mansion, Marcus watched the same feature. His heart pounded as he saw Lila on the screen, radiant, confident, carrying Emmanuel on her hip as she spoke passionately about her business. The boy's face was unmistakably his own son's. Marcus's chest tightened. Memories of her laughter, her tears, the night she told him she was pregnant, all came flooding back. Regret pierced him like a knife. For the first time, he realized the enormity of what he had lost. Gloria noticed his silence. "What's wrong?" she asked, sipping her wine. He shook his head quickly, forcing a smile. "Nothing. Just thinking." But inside, he wasn't thinking. He was burning. Burning with guilt, with longing, with the realization that the woman he had abandoned had turned her pain into power. And suddenly, all the wealth, all the prestige, all the applause he had seemed meaningless compared to what he had thrown away. Meanwhile, Lila stood taller each day. Her business grew, her son thrived, and her name became one whispered with admiration rather than scorn. She had risen from the ashes of betrayal, not as a victim, but as a victor. And deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Marcus had everything most men dreamed of. A wealthy family name, a glamorous fiancée, expensive cars, and a future mapped out with influence and power. But despite the lavishness that surrounded him, Marcus's heart felt like a barren desert. Each day, the emptiness grew deeper, gnawing at him in ways he couldn't explain. He had chosen status over love, approval over truth, and in doing so, he had lost something he didn't realize he needed until it was gone. Life with Gloria was nothing like he had expected. At first, she had seemed perfect, elegant, polished, adored by his family. She was the kind of woman who fit neatly into their world of power dinners and charity galas. But behind closed doors, perfection unraveled. Gloria wasn't interested in him as a man. She was interested in what his last name represented. She loved the spotlight, the designer clothes, the photographs in glossy magazines. But she never loved him. The cracks began to show quickly. She criticized him for working late, nagged about his habits, and treated their relationship like a performance. "Smile for the camera, Marcus," she would whisper through clenched teeth at events, her hand clutching his arm like a vice. In public, they were flawless. At home, they were strangers. One night, after yet another charity event, Marcus poured himself a drink and sat alone in the dimly lit living room of their apartment. Gloria emerged from the bedroom in silk pajamas, scrolling on her phone. "Tomorrow we have a dinner with Senator Lawson," she said absent-mindedly. "Don't be late. And please, wear the navy suit. It photographs better." Marcus stared at her, his chest heavy. "Do you ever care about me, Gloria? I mean me, not the image, not the events, not the headlines. Just me." She looked up briefly, then smirked. "Marcus, don't be dramatic. We both know what this is. We're a power couple. We elevate each other. Isn't that enough?" He downed his drink in one gulp, his throat burning. "No," he muttered under his breath. "It's not enough." That night, he dreamed of Lila, her laughter, her warmth, the way she used to look at him like he was more than a name. He saw Emmanuel's face in the dream too, his son, the boy he had denied. He woke up with tears in his eyes, guilt clawing at his chest. Meanwhile, Lila's life was soaring. Her food business had expanded into a small shop. Customers lined up every day, praising her meals and admiring her resilience. She hired more staff, invested in better equipment, and even saved enough to enroll Emmanuel in a good preschool. Her name was no longer whispered in shame, but spoken with admiration. "That young mother is unstoppable," people said. Marcus saw it all. He couldn't escape her. Articles about her appeared in the papers. Features on TV celebrated her story, and even his own family members mentioned her in passing. His father once said at dinner, "That girl, what's her name, Lila? She's turning into quite the entrepreneur. Impressive for someone with no background." Marcus had swallowed hard, forcing himself not to respond. But inside, jealousy and regret consumed him. Every time he saw Emmanuel's face on a TV feature or in a newspaper photo, he felt a pang so sharp it nearly crippled him. The boy looked just like him, same eyes, same dimples. It was like staring into a mirror of the past he had thrown away. One evening, Marcus came home late from work to find Gloria packing for a weekend trip with her friends. "I'll be gone till Monday," she said breezily. "Don't wait up." Marcus frowned. "Again? You were gone last weekend too." She rolled her eyes. "Marcus, please. I'm not your maid. I need my space. Besides, you'll be fine. You have your business meetings to keep you busy." He wanted to argue, but the exhaustion in his heart silenced him. He watched as she wheeled her suitcase out the door, leaving him in the cavernous apartment alone. The silence was deafening. For the first time, he admitted the truth to himself. He wasn't in love, and he wasn't loved. That night, he drank heavily, scrolling through social media until he stumbled on a video of Lila at a business seminar. She stood tall, confident, her natural hair styled beautifully, Emmanuel sitting on her lap, laughing. She was radiant. The crowd clapped as she spoke passionately about perseverance and motherhood. Marcus's vision blurred as he replayed the video again and again. The next morning, he made a decision. He drove to her shop. His sleek car stood out among the bustling customers and street vendors. Heads turned as he stepped out, dressed in a tailored suit. But Lila barely flinched when she saw him. She was behind the counter, taking orders, Emmanuel tugging at her dress. When their eyes met, Marcus felt his throat tighten. He had rehearsed 100 things to say, but now all he could whisper was, "Lila." She froze for a moment, then straightened. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was cold, controlled. "I needed to see you." To see him. His eyes flicked toward Emmanuel, who looked up curiously at the stranger. Lila's body stiffened, her protective instincts flaring. "You have no right to be here. You denied him. You denied us. Now you think you can just show up." Marcus swallowed hard, guilt etched across his face. "I was wrong. I was scared. But seeing you now, seeing him, Lila, please. I can't stay away anymore." Her laugh was bitter, sharp. "Stay away? Marcus, you've been away since the moment I told you I was pregnant. Do you know how many nights I cried myself to sleep while rocking him? Do you know how many times I prayed he would never ask why his father wasn't around? And now, you want what, redemption? Access? To ease your guilt?" Emmanuel tugged at her dress again, oblivious to the storm brewing between his parents. Lila bent down, lifted him into her arms, and kissed his forehead. "He already has everything he needs. He has me. You don't get to walk back in just because your life feels empty now." Marcus's voice cracked. "Please, Lila. Just let me be part of his life. I'll do anything." She shook her head firmly. "No. You made your choice. And we've moved on without you." Customers nearby pretended not to listen, but whispers spread quickly. The once proud heir of the Adebayo family was begging the woman he had abandoned. It was a humiliation Marcus never imagined for himself. As he drove away that day, his chest hollow, his hands trembling on the steering wheel, Marcus realized the truth. He had lost them, and maybe, just maybe, he didn't deserve to get them back. But that didn't stop the ache. It didn't stop the longing. It didn't stop the regret that would haunt him every single day. Marcus couldn't sleep. After that humiliating encounter at Lila's shop, her words echoed in his head like a curse. "You denied him. You denied us. He already has everything he needs. He has me." Every syllable gnawed at him. For the first time in his privileged life, he was powerless. Money couldn't fix this. His family name couldn't erase it. The weight of his choices pressed on him until it became unbearable. He poured drink after drink at night, staring at the ceiling, asking himself why he had been so blind. He remembered the day she told him she was pregnant, how fear and pride had closed his heart. He remembered every promise he had made to her, every moment he had chosen silence instead of courage. And now he saw Emmanuel, his son, his blood, looking at him like a stranger. That memory haunted him most of all. Days passed, but he couldn't stay away. One Saturday morning, he drove again to her shop. This time, he waited until customers had thinned out. Lila was wiping down a table while Emmanuel played with toy cars on the floor. When she looked up and saw Marcus, her expression hardened. "I told you not to come back." He stepped forward cautiously, his voice low. "Lila, please. Just hear me out." She crossed her arms. What could you possibly say that I haven't already heard? I was a fool, he said, his voice cracking. I was scared of my parents, scared of their judgment. I let pride and fear control me. But every day since, I've thought about you. About him. I regret everything. He glanced at Emmanuel, who was obliviously humming while pushing his toy. He's mine. I can see it. I can feel it. And I can't bear the thought of not being in his life. Lila's eyes glistened, but she didn't soften. Do you think regret is enough? Do you think your tears undo the nights I cried alone? The days I carried him with no support? The shame I endured while you hid behind your family's wealth? I know I can't erase the past, Marcus said desperately, stepping closer. But I want to make things right. I want to be in his life. I want to support him. Support you. Just give me a chance. She shook her head. It's too late, Marcus. Too late. Marcus's voice broke. Please, don't say that. He's my son. Doesn't he deserve to know his father? Her jaw tightened. A father isn't the man who gives a child his name. A father is the man who stays. You left. You denied him before he could even breathe. And now, when your life is empty, you come crawling back? No, I won't let you use him to soothe your guilt. Marcus dropped to his knees, right there on the tiled floor of the shop. Customers who were trickling back and gasped quietly, pretending to look away, but stealing glances. The wealthy heir of the Adebayo family was on his knees, begging a woman he had once abandoned. Lila, he whispered, tears streaming down his face. I am begging you. Please, just let me be part of his life. Let me prove that I can change. Let me be his father. Lila's hands trembled. She had dreamed of this once, Marcus choosing them, Marcus claiming his son, Marcus fighting for them. But now, as she looked at him, she felt no joy, only sorrow and anger. She saw a man who had waited until it was too late, a man who wanted redemption only when life had shown him the emptiness of his choices. You don't deserve him, she said finally, her voice firm. You don't deserve us. I won't let you waltz back into our lives and pretend the past didn't happen. Marcus bowed his head, his shoulders shaking. Then punish me. Hate me. But don't punish him. Don't let him grow up thinking his father never cared. Her voice softened slightly, though steel remained beneath. He doesn't think that. He doesn't lack love. He has me. And that's more than enough. He doesn't need you, Marcus. He never did. Emmanuel, sensing the tension, toddled toward her, tugging at her dress. She scooped him into her arms, pressing a kiss to his cheek. The boy giggled, wrapping his arms around her neck, innocent and unbothered by the storm around him. Marcus stared at them through blurred vision. The sight of them together, whole, complete without him, was a dagger to his heart. He reached out weakly. Lila, please, please. She shook her head, her eyes fierce. No. You made your choice years ago. You chose pride over love, fear over responsibility, and now you must live with it. I don't hate you, Marcus, but I will never let you break us again. With that, she turned and walked toward the back of the shop, Emmanuel safe in her arms. She didn't look back. Marcus remained on his knees, humiliated and broken, as whispers spread among the onlookers. For the first time in his life, he realized he couldn't buy forgiveness, couldn't command love, couldn't undo what he had destroyed. And for Lila, it was the moment she finally understood her own strength. The tables had turned. He was the one begging now, and she was the one with the power to say no. Lila walked away from Marcus that day with Emmanuel in her arms and a strange calm in her heart. For years, she had prayed, cried, and wished for him to come back, to claim them, to choose them. And now that he had finally begged for forgiveness, she realized something powerful. She didn't need him anymore. She never had. The strength she once thought came from Marcus had been inside her all along, revealed only through struggle. The woman who once wept in silence was now the woman people admired, respected, and celebrated. Her business grew beyond what she had ever dreamed. The small food stand expanded into a restaurant, bright and bustling with customers every day. She hired staff, trained young girls who reminded her of herself, and became a mentor to many. Soon, local newspapers weren't enough. National media outlets wanted her story. She was invited to conferences, interviewed on TV, and praised as a model of resilience. She didn't just feed people, she inspired them. Emmanuel became her shadow, always by her side, his laughter filling her world with joy. He grew strong and curious, adored by everyone who met him. Teachers at his preschool praised his brilliance. Neighbors admired his politeness. And to Lila, he was the greatest blessing of her life. One day, as she dropped Emmanuel off at school, another parent approached her. "You've done well, Lila," the woman said kindly. "Raising him alone, building your business. You're a true example. We all respect you." Lila smiled softly, her heart swelling. Respect, a word she once thought she'd never hear again. She no longer carried shame. She carried dignity. But Marcus's life was unraveling. His marriage to Gloria was a disaster. At first, the public saw them as a glamorous pair, but behind closed doors, their union was a battlefield. Gloria grew tired of pretending. She wanted more money, more status, more influence. Marcus was never enough. Their fights became explosive. Their arguments splashed across tabloids. Rumors of her affairs circulated, and eventually, the marriage collapsed in scandal. Gloria walked away with wealth and connections, leaving Marcus with nothing but humiliation. His business ventures faltered too. Deals slipped through his fingers, investors pulled away, and his father, tired of his failures, stripped him of responsibilities in the family company. Marcus watched as everything he had once boasted about, his power, his image, his prestige, crumbled before him. The man who once mocked others now became the subject of whispers. "Have you heard about Marcus Adebayo? He's not the man he used to be." At night, his empty apartment echoed with silence. No wife, no friends, no laughter. Just bottles of alcohol and the ghost of memories he couldn't escape. He often found himself scrolling through old photos of Lila and Emmanuel that he secretly saved from social media. He would stare at them for hours, his chest aching, whispering to the walls, "That should have been my family. That should have been my life." But it wasn't, because when it mattered most, he had chosen fear. One afternoon, he couldn't resist anymore. He returned to Lila's restaurant, uninvited. Customers whispered as he walked in, his once pristine appearance dulled by stress and sleepless nights. Lila noticed him immediately, her expression unreadable. "Marcus," she said firmly, "what are you doing here again?" He swallowed hard, his voice hoarse. I just wanted to see you." To see him. Emmanuel, now older, looked up curiously at the man standing awkwardly near the door. Lila bent down to her son's level and said gently, "Go to the kitchen, darling. Mummy will be right there." The boy obeyed, and only then did she turn back to Marcus. "You need to stop this," she said coldly. "I told you before, you don't get to walk in and out of our lives as you please." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "I can't let go. Every night, I think about what I lost. You, him, everything. Please, Lila, just give me a chance. I'll work, I'll change, I'll do anything." Her voice was steady, her strength unshakable. "You had your chance, Marcus. You had it when I carried Emmanuel for 9 months. You had it when I called you from the hospital, begging you to come. You had it when he cried through sleepless nights, and I rocked him alone. But you chose silence. You chose another life. And now, you must live with the consequences." He reached out weakly, his hands trembling. "Please, I beg you." Lila stepped back. "No, I've forgiven you in my heart, but forgiveness doesn't mean reunion. Emmanuel already has all the love he needs. I won't let you disrupt his peace." The customers in the restaurant watched silently, many of them nodding with quiet respect for Lila. Marcus's face crumbled as he realized the truth. He would never get back what he lost. As he walked out, shoulders slumped. He knew he was a man condemned not by the world, but by his own choices. His punishment was not prison, not poverty, but regret. Eternal, unshakable regret. That evening, Lila sat with Emmanuel on her lap, stroking his hair as he drifted to sleep. She thought of Marcus, not with anger anymore, but with a bittersweet acceptance. He had been her first love, her deepest wound, and now her greatest lesson. She whispered to her son, "We are enough, my love. You and me. Always." Years later, Emmanuel would grow into a young man admired for his brilliance and kindness. People would ask about his father, but he would always smile and say, "My mother gave me everything I needed." And Lila, now a woman of influence, would walk with her head high, not defined by betrayal, but by triumph. As for Marcus, he remained a shadow of the man he once was, alone, forgotten by the society that once praised him, haunted by memories of the family he could have had. He often thought back to that single moment when he said, "I never wanted a family with you." That was the day he lost everything. Lila, on the other hand, had risen from the ashes, turned her pain into power, and built a life filled with love, respect, and victory. She didn't need revenge. Her success was enough. And Marcus's regret was punishment enough. When she walked down the street, holding Emmanuel's hand, people no longer whispered in scorn. They whispered in admiration. She was the woman who had been denied, humiliated, abandoned. Yet she rose higher than anyone expected. And every time Marcus saw her from a distance, his heart shattered anew, knowing he could never undo the past. Lila had triumphed, and Marcus would spend the rest of his life watching the family he threw away walk out of reach forever. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please like, comment, and share. Also turn on the bell to get more of our videos. See you in the next story.